Well, it's been a while since I've done a countdown video, and I figured I would do one. And the best way to do it is on Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. This is one of my favorite Metroidvania games I have played. The fun combat system, the good selection of characters, the nice story I had to offer, and of course the boss fights being the highlight. So to share my praise on this wonderful game, I figured I would rank every single boss from my least favorite to my most favorite. I also have done the DLC and the game on 2 playthroughs to see what I think of each boss fight. The footage will be showcased on hard mode. A couple rules to note is that I'll be judging these bosses based on how well they utilize the abilities of this game, the overall skill presence, story presence, or even music as extra bonus. I won't be including any of the boar encounters or the alternate Sargon fights since the mini bosses don't have anything noteworthy for me to talk about. But everyone else, I will be discussing all the way through. 14 bosses, all ranked in my opinion. So without further ado, let's see what exactly takes the crown in this list. And in my opinion, the boss that takes the bottom spot in this ranking is Artaban, the teacher himself. To even fight this guy, you need to do all of the challenges he has to present and have DLC, since he poses as the last secret and most difficult boss battle in the entire game. And as I mentioned, he is one of the hardest I have faced thus far, and by far my least favorite in the whole game. His attack moves consist of 2 parryable attacks, other parryable attacks like full circle and the upward dive attack, even creating fire trails along the way. But it's really not that bad to get the handle of. It's just the timing on these attacks, since he loves taking long pauses, just throws me off and takes a bit to get used to. That be at first, until he does the transitional phase, where he takes you to his alternate dimension and creates bubbles with clones of himself in each of them. You have to make sure to avoid every single one of them. If you get hit by a single one of his clones, I'm not even kidding, he will grab you by the ass and take away all of your health. Yep, even if you're at full health with all the health upgrades, he'll just deplete it on hard difficulty. I'm not sure about the other difficulties, but I'm sure it's the same way. It's just ridiculous. And he gets fully charged up with Amrita, which, by the way, is the worst thing that will happen, because he will combo you with various attack moves, such as creating more fire trails when he does the upward slash, has this full circle, which, by the way, if you get caught by it, you are stun locked to damage, and he can even wombo combo you with this move. I have gotten close to beating this guy, and I always end up dying near the end because of this wombo combo bullshit. It's really infuriating. Wouldn't be so bad, but he's a tank. He has a lot of health. Not even the final boss does this much damage. But this guy, he will straight up body you. I have faced Lady Ethereal and Nameless Cain, and they were better bosses than this guy. Look, I like a challenging boss, but every single time I get to the end, he always fucking wombo combos me, and it just becomes the annoying and frustrating kind of fun than the actual kind of fun that I want from a difficult boss. Honestly, just if you really want to bother fighting him and get your bragging rights, go for it, but otherwise, just skip him. It's not worth all the stress and hassle. Thankfully, the next boss I'll be talking about is more tame in comparison, that being General Uvishka. Now, he's only taking the fall for committing one of the most heinous crimes a boss shouldn't do: tutorial boss syndrome. You see, you always got those first tutorial bosses that are either really easy, fair enough challenge, or just straight up annoying. But this guy is straight up one of the easiest first bosses to come across. Basic spear attacks that he does while riding on his horse are pretty easy to parry. He does educate you on unblockables, something you didn't learn throughout the level, which is kind of a nice twist, and he also throws in a reckless attack, even if it's just a slowed down QTE. Seriously, why is this here? We already learned this move from a basic enemy earlier in the level, so having this just ruins the flow of the boss fight in my opinion. Phase 2 isn't anything special, it just throws in basic spear attacks and jabs at you. Just nothing too crazy. Honestly, this guy is only just here just to get his ass beat to boost Sargon's ego. So, yeah, nothing too offensive, but he has to take the fall for this bottom spot. But it's the first boss, so I have to be at least merciful with this guy. So, best to get him out of here.
Your sense of justice tastes like blood.
Wait, didn't I already talk about you? Yeah, you were the first boss of the game. Why are you here again? Oh, that's right. DLC, you're the first DLC boss. I guess that makes sense. Yeah, Uvishka comes back as a zombie, and he's ready to seek revenge on you. The DLC is only available after the first farm fight, where you're forced to lose, and thus you get the option to do the DLC. If you decide to do it after you beat the final boss, the game will literally take away all of your health upgrades and most of your Simoic abilities. Yep, say goodbye to those, because you're returning back to the past of the first level from the base game in this DLC, and bam, you get to fight against Uvishka again. And how does he pose? Well, you already know the placement. He has basic charge moves and slam moves, which is mostly unblockable attacks. He does have a couple, that being basic spear attacks and a backhand smack whenever he fakes you out. Second phase doesn't do anything special, just more charge moves and more crystals he'll just elevate out of the ground. This boss fight, despite being crazy, isn't anything too special. He doesn't hit hard enough on hard difficulty, and he goes down like a chump. Yeah, despite him coming back from the dead, he doesn't leave a lot of good first impressions, if I'll be honest. This guy might as well have just stayed dead anyways if he was just gonna go down like a pushover. Sorry, big boy, but we got better bosses to look at. I know I've said mini bosses aren't allowed, but Ardashir is the only exception to this list, since he's very unique compared to the other main bosses in the game, and requires further steps for you to even reach him. You have to hunt down all of the 8 Lost Warriors scattered in various locations in order to get access to fight him, and once you do, you get introduced to a pretty nice boss fight overall. This guy utilizes the abilities of all the 8 warriors combined into one, such as ice moves, throwing his spear around like poison spears, lightning, projectiles, using arrows as explosives, fire trails, bombs, you name it. Everything he does to counteract you. He does keep that shield in good use for basic spear attacks and teleporting around, even creating lightning. Combine all of the Lost Warriors abilities together and you get yourself one pretty solid boss fight, even if it's a bit on the easy side. The only gripe I have is the freaking camera. Because this guy loves to teleport, he could take pot shots at you, which has led to some cheap moments, especially when it's a poison dart move. But overall, he does offer a pretty interesting fight, and one that's definitely worth hunting down. But despite all that, we still got some better bosses to look at, but at least this general can actually put up a fight, unlike a certain other general earlier. Despite being the second boss of the game, Jahanda actually poses to be the first legit challenging boss you'll come across in the game. He throws in basic swipe moves, actually educates you on parrying the reckless attack, which is very satisfying to parry, especially for later bosses in the game. So you also got that to have a hand at and see how it goes. He also throws in his tail for either backsmacking or creating poison holes in the ground. He'll even amp up the attacks by using the same attack but throwing in one extra for you to expect the unexpected. He does educate you on expecting that for later bosses in the game, where they take their same attacks and amp it up quite a bit, even with the poison darts he throws at you. He also creates this orb that casts down lightning on you, which is something you have to juggle, but thankfully isn't too annoying to deal with. Or you could just shoot it down with your bows. Yeah, that works too. Yes, it's kind of boring. You do get the equipment to shoot it down, but I prefer keeping it there for the extra bit of challenge. It's nothing too crazy, and it makes the fight a lot more interesting, kind of like a Cuphead boss. Overall, this giant manticore definitely offers a pretty good fight and gets you excited for what to expect later on in the game, so I have to give him props for that.
You're giving me no choice.
And here we have the bow-wielding master himself, Menelaus. This fight is one that I'm mixed on, but still one of the more enjoyable fights. He's one of the 4 immortals you fight against throughout the game, others being Varum, Orod, and someone else who I can't put my finger on who exactly.
I don't exist, apparently!
Oh well, doesn't matter. But either way, Menelaus does a good job at being a pretty fun fight, but he does suffer by being a bit annoying. The first phase is an annoyance because since he has low poise, you can easily juggle him and get a lot of attacks in before he pushes you away. But since he has low poise, he'll always keep his distance from you while shooting arrows, creating these projectiles, and even shooting more barrages of arrows in between via red or parryable attacks. So yeah, you have to play pretty aggressively in order to even get in some good hits, up until later phases of the fight, where he makes sure that you don't get too reckless, because he has a move that can counteract you if you hit him while he's doing a specific pose. On one hand, I do appreciate them adding this move so that way you don't get too greedy, but on the other hand, there have been times where it comes out so quickly that I get cucked over. But thankfully you can just regenerate your health over time if you manage to not take a lot of damage. He throws in this boomerang move for you to either jump or duck over, and also in a move attack where he'll just punish you, but luckily you can try to avoid it with no issues whatsoever. He also does this phase transition move with the arrows coming from the sky, which the attack I'm mixed on. On one hand, it could either be easy to avoid all the arrows, but on the other hand, you can become a magnet to these things, and he only does this move once in the fight. Kind of a shame, really. He does offer a pretty fun, fast-paced fight for you to try to get all aggressive and close in without being too greedy, but he does have a couple annoyances, and constantly chasing him down does get a bit tiring at times. But he does have, in my opinion, the best boss theme in the game. Just have a listen to it. So overall, this master of archery definitely does his job very well, even if there's other bosses I do prefer.
You can't stay here. Phil Radjen is after us.
Oh, right, Radjen, yeah. Yeah, what the fuck happened to her? For some reason, she got pushed as DLC content? I don't get why they didn't make her a secret optional boss to fight against, but it's Ubisoft. What the hell else was I expecting? Well, she serves as the final boss of the Mask of Darkness DLC. And speaking personally, she does offer a good fight, but by final boss DLC standards, I would have expected a bit more considering I faced more crazier DLC final bosses in my opinion. But overall, what can I say about her? She does utilize those whips to good use and basic slash moves for you to parry, and you have to parry them because she inflicts poison on you, which that's wonderful. She does offer different moves such as spinning tornadoes, creating a bubble that inflicts poison onto you, that sort of stuff, and backhand smacks, of course, because why not? But she does offer various moves to keep you on your toes, especially since you have to work with whatever health and potions you can get in the DLC, which I recommend maxing them out just in case for this battle, since she's a bit of a tank to go through, and the various clonings can also push you over with some various moves. You also have to utilize your teleportation moves to avoid her various red attacks that can't be parried, and you need to avoid them to avoid extra damage, which I do appreciate the offer here. She does have face transitions where she pulls off the generic hands and head boss, but all she does is swipe her unblockable attacks and slash with her blockable attacks. She does have a clap move, but once you know how to avoid it, it's really not that bad. Honestly, I wish there was a segment in this fight where we actually fought her in this form instead of it just being avoid a bunch of attacks and that's it. You barely even do any damage. But if there's one attack I genuinely hate from this fight, her reckless attack. I for the life of me struggle to parry this fucking attack, since you have to parry it 2 times. Yeah, 2. None of the other bosses require you to parry their reckless attack 2 times, it's only 1. But she's the only exception. It's really annoying to try to get that parry in, and you have to make sure to land the parry, or else you get cucked over. It's the only attack move I struggle so much with to try to get the handle of, because the other moves I don't really mind, it takes a good bit of practice to get the handle of. But this reckless move? Nah, I just either keep my distance or try to parry it and hopefully get it. But regardless, she does offer a good enough fight and serves very well as a DLC final boss. But I will say, I hate the ending. I'm not gonna spoil it, but I just hate the ending. And yeah, I think it's for the best that they should have just left her forgotten, even for a good while fight. Never thought I'd be fighting a giant snake as a boss in this game, but you know, Extra Hard does actually offer pretty good stuff. You've been hearing about this character throughout the small portion of the game, and hearing that this is a powerful god that you don't want to mess with. Well, if you're playing anything other than Immortal, you'll see that it's all just fairy tale gobbledygook. But regardless, she does offer a very good and enjoyable fight. This boss fight relies more on being a puzzle gimmick avoiding attack kind of style, where you have to utilize your teleportation and your parrying moves to either counteract her attacks and reflect them back at her. She also will throw in various lasers and crystals on the ground later on in the fight for you to avoid and keep momentum in the air. She'll also throw in bombs where you have to reflect them back to smack her in the face, a reckless attack that's pretty tricky to avoid but very satisfying to get the handle of. And she does throw in these arrow projectiles that you can dodge or just parry, which is simple to do. And she does this attack move with her tail, sending out multiple projectiles for you to either duck and avoid, or you can just parry them all, you know, that also works too. Kinda reminds me of Grimm's pufferfish attack. And I will say that like her bite attacks are a bit of a nuisance to try to avoid, but nothing too crazy. Overall, it's just a really enjoyable fight, despite being one of the easier bosses in the game in my opinion once you get into the handle of. But fighting against a powerful snake with Persian rock music playing, that's just an instant win in my books. It definitely has one of the better boss themes in my opinion. So overall, I say this giant snake, despite being old gobbledygook fairy tale nonsense about her being powerful, I wasn't disappointed. Kiana the Forest Queen actually does a good job at being a gank fight, but done very well. Considering you're not only just fighting her, you're also fighting the wolf as well, it makes for quite an intense and hectic moment. The phases where you actually fight her and the wolf, they combo together with their various attack moves, such as her throwing her spear while the wolf charges, her throwing her spear in a circular style for you to parry or to avoid, throwing out projectile bombs that you can also use against them for a bit of extra damage, and utilizing the teleporting moves in the process. These two combine their attacks together make for a very fun and challenging battle, but nothing to where it feels like it's too unfair and annoying to get the handle of. She does the phase transitions where she sends in clones of herself for up and down attacks for you to dodge or duck, while she also comes from the sky. Also, I'm tempted to make another Hollow Knight reference, lol. But unlike Sisters of Battle, you actually have more space to avoid her attacks, and you can't just wail at her since you do less damage to her in these phases. But overall, it's some pretty fun stuff. Definitely the phase transitions I actually like the most. It's pretty satisfying to also parry her reckless attack move and just seeing them both getting collapsed and just getting bodied. Overall, the fight just offers quite a lot. The combination of the wolf's various attacks that he throws in, her coming in with her various attacks as well, requires strict timing to avoid and utilizing the best of your abilities, especially when dealing with the bombs and actually teleporting to avoid getting hit by many of her unblockable attacks. This gank fight can prove that gank fights are actually well designed, and combined together, they offer to make some of the most exciting and exhilarating fights ever to come across. Overall, the Force Queen herself definitely offers a pretty great fight, even if music itself isn't one of my favorites, but still, just seeing all these attacks come out together, it's quite some fun stuff.
Challenge Sargon, the Betrayer!
Orod, the Storm Master himself. I was very iffy about where to place this boss in the rankings, since he was, in my opinion, the toughest boss in the game. That was until DLC. And he still is one of the more tougher fights to get the manage of in all three phases. The first phase, he starts off pretty simple with his anchor staff, throwing it around for you to jump over or to slide under so you can keep momentum, parrying his various slashing moves, even throwing in some unblockable attacks for you to dodge and avoid. When he splits his anchors apart, things get even more crazier, as he now utilizes those anchors to either slam attacks, throw himself around for charge moves, even hitting you from a distance, and having a move where it will literally destroy your health. All of these moves require you to keep a fair distance while parrying ones that you can, since he throws in so many unblockable attacks. But things get crazier in the third phase, where he not only becomes blue, but he also throws in lightning attacks as well, hence the Storm Master name. And these lightning attacks, you have to be on your toes on when to strike, when to avoid, keep your momentum in the air, and not get caught by all of his moves. He really was having the time of his life in this fight, and you know what? So am I. I had an enjoyable time fighting him on hard difficulty in my second playthrough, mastering all the various attack moves, combined with extra moves and attacks that he throws in. It's just really some fun stuff. He does lose some points by being pretty fast, but a bit too fast for my likings to try to memorize all of the attack moves. But once I got the handle of it, it actually became an enjoyable and fun encounter overall. And honestly, this boss fight was one of the big highlights in the game for me, especially from one of my favorite levels leading up to this fight. So at least I was able to find a lightning boss that was actually fun, since a lot of them tend to be duds. So thank you, Orod, even though I feel bad for putting you down because I didn't really want to after that enjoyable chaotic mess we both went through. But overall, this is a time of our lives, and this dance definitely lasted long enough for me to get a lot of enjoyment.
Sargon.
Varum's second fight, Egypt serves as the final boss of the base story, and serves as the ultimate climax to conclude this amazing game. Honestly, I really like the final fight against Varum. especially if there was a couple instances I wasn't a fan of, especially since I had this boss ranked down lower than originally on this list. This fight is split up into 4 separate phases that you have to go through. In phase 1, he utilizes various magic attacks, such as fireballs, homing fire for you to avoid, arrows for you to also deal with, just very simple stuff. Phase 2 gets better when he throws in his sword into the mix for you to parry and to avoid, and even doing the judgment slashes, and also parrying him from the reckless attack, which by the way, just take a look. That is some damn satisfying parrying right there. Overall, the second phase is definitely a step up, but phase 3 is where things even get better, especially since he brings in a clone of himself to amp up some of the previous attacks, such as the lasers where you have to keep your momentum in the air, even throwing in more lasers, and his clone also throwing in some other various attacks in the process. He throws in so much in these previous 2 phases that it just makes for a hectic climax. However, the last phase is the only negative downside, as it's meant to be more of a victory lap than a final challenge. Which I don't mind, but it doesn't really retain the challenge that the previous phases have, especially since he keeps some of his old attacks from phase 2, such as downward slashes. I do like that this fight utilizes the various moves that you have throughout the game, and it makes for a very good final climax to end it off. However, the crystal bubble shield is my only negative, as that attack gives you opportunities to damage him heavily, and in between phases, once you deplete all of his health, you have to destroy this giant orb, and all he does is just rewind time so you can do the next phase. A move that was so creatively used in the first fight just feels like a phase transition, which waters it down. Honestly, as much as I really like the final boss, I wish it was a bit better. For example, I wish the fight was 2 phases long, and both phases were pretty lengthy, while he also throws in all the attacks that he has. But even with that, I still think he's one of the better final bosses I have faced, and overall a really great climax to end off one of my favorite games I played. But just like with many other people, we had better.
Your anger is sharper than your sword, Sargon.
Barham's first fight was the boss fight that actually screamed pig for me, more so than his final fight in my opinion, and for various reasons. You confront Barham very early in the game in a force loss battle, which is nice to get the handle of some of his attacks, but sadly you are forced to lose here even if you try to beat him regardless, since not much would really change. But you do get to go back in time and actually get some sweet payback, even teaming up with past Sargon for a 2-on-1 action. Having to wombo combo him is definitely fun and satisfying, even if past Sargon gets bodied. Oh well, it was fun while it lasted. But regardless, the first fight offers so much more than the second fight in my opinion in terms of attacks. This fight's all about reaction and timing when to strike, such as parrying his various attack moves, dodging the other attack moves he throws in the process, and even throwing in various moves like the judgment cut, which has a really good sound effect. And even rewinding time to try to catch you off guard, and for you to expect the unexpected. It's not really that bad to get handle of, and I actually prefer it here than just being a phase transition. Varm offers so much since he's very fast and aggressive, and you can't juggle him around since he doesn't have low poise unlike Menelaus. It's all about timing and striking, and avoiding the various attack moves that he throws in, such as creating bubble shields to slow down time, and to add in for more sword attacks. Despite not having a lot of attacks, and ones that you can only parry, he does a really good job, and I just like getting the satisfaction of getting some well-deserved payback on the bastard that bodied us very early in the game. It's really just a good fight, and one of the few first villain encounters that's actually really damn good. And despite all of this, he nearly was able to make it to number 1, but regardless, there is one other boss that actually was my number 1 pick, and you can take a guess on who it is.
This protects my son.
Let's be honest, it was obvious that this guy was gonna be number one, in the form of Slave Knight Gwyn, King Darius himself. Honestly, when I first played this game, this boss was instantly my favorite, and even replaying the game again, he still holds up as being the best boss in the game by far. When it comes to me and ice bosses, ones I face are either pathetically easy, or... But at least I had my fair share of some very good and enjoyable ice bosses, and Darius is one of them. Sure, he does throw fire into the mix, but he still retains the ice attacks such as creating icicles using the various standard sword attacks, and even still keeping the ice attacks in Phase 3. Things get more crazier in Phase 2 where he creates fire trails and you have to utilize your last ability, the grappling move, which is very fun to use, especially in this fight for some high swing action. I feel like I'm Tarzan up in this bitch. It's really chaotic on how much he utilizes his various fire attacks to keep you up in the air, creating fire circles for you to keep your momentum to avoid getting hit by all of the purple flames, and zipping across the arena like he's also Tarzan as well. And pairing that reckless attack he does, just watch! So damn good. This fight offers some very high swing action, and it's such a good fight, especially being one of my favorite penultimate bosses I have faced thus far. King Darius just offers so much excitement and exhilaration despite only using one ability, but the attacks he throws in makes that ability so damn fun and enjoyable to utilize, and pairing his various attacks and avoiding all of it just makes for a crazy amount of fun and creativity on when to strike and to keep your momentum in the air. This boss just offers so much that undoubtedly he had to be number one, and even replaying the game on the harder difficulty, I had a lot of fun reading this boss, so much to the point where death didn't annoy me that much. Overall, the king himself definitely delivered one of the best fights in the game, and one that really made it peak for me near the end of the game. Even if Farm's second fight didn't live up to the hype and expectations as I thought, King Darius definitely did not disappoint, and it really makes me sad that I had to put this old man out of his misery. Sorry bro, but that's just how things are, but thank you for the awesome fight in the end. Well, that's it. That's all of the bosses in Prince of Persia. Let me know what you think. Do you agree or disagree? I hope you all enjoyed me sharing about this game, and I do recommend it if you're interested in Metroidvania style games, as it's quite enjoyable. I did hear that the game did have some bugs, but I didn't encounter that many, so overall, I say it's safe to play, even if it was made by Ubisoft of all people. But regardless, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time. About time I've been getting to countdowns.